Okay, Bitcoin just closed the Tuesday session. We now begin the Wednesday session. Tomorrow after the bell, by the way, the closing bell for the stock market, we'll get the NVIDIA earnings. We'll be watching to see what happens there. NVIDIA rallied up, got rejection at the gap fill area from when it gapped lower with DeepSeek, the DeepSeek sell-off, and it's turned off that level. It's pulled back to the 200. We'll be watching NVIDIA's earnings. That impacts the stock market. Again, the stock market and Bitcoin have a positive correlation. Again, back on January 20th, I told you that we were going to get a pullback. Called that correctly. It was Inauguration Day. I called the bottom on January 13th correctly and told you at key horizontal support we were going to bounce. At that time, I thought that that was a bottom, but told you other alternatives. Talk about that in a second. And then also called the day of the top over here. So, well, I got the top correct here and predicted the sell-off. I told you that I thought the January low was going to hold at the support zone, and that was not correct. I told you what could happen if that wasn't correct, that minor wave 4 wasn't done yet. I told you I thought we'd find support here either just above this low right here or just below it into the support zone. We ended up breaking that support zone and going lower. We did get a little bit of a bottoming tail, buyers coming in at the lows of the session for Bitcoin, having a negative reaction to Trump giving the green light, for the tariffs for next week on March 4th with Canada and Mexico. And we saw the market, stock market fall, Bitcoin's lead lower with consumer confidence coming in much lower than expected. The biggest drop since 2021. It was down about 7% since August of 2021. So made some really good calls on the turns. Got the pullback right, but we've gone lower than I expected. I did talk about that. Also, if we continue to try to go lower, you have the 200 period moving average in play. Again, talked about this horizontal support area here, and again we came down to it. We hit the VWAP support right here, but then we broke this level. And again, I told you if we broke this level, the support zone from the January low to this low right here, and the support zone, that the door is open to go a little bit lower and to complete minor wave 4, because again I told you I thought it was done here. That has now been invalidated. So again, got the sell-off correct. I thought we had bottomed in this area above the January low. I was not correct about that, and we broke that VWAP support. We broke the support zone, and we came down to the next VWAP support here and bounced. So again, I have the guts to tell you what I think, but I also told you, again, I thought we had bottomed this week, but I told you that if I was wrong about holding above the January low, that again we could form minor wave 4 over here and then still go make new highs. I still believe Bitcoin's going to make new highs. I still believe we're going higher. I just believe that minor wave 4 is still under construction, and it could bottom here or a little bit lower at the 200 period moving average, which very well could be the case. VWAP support that we're hitting right now is from this red line right here, anchored from the 52,000 low, that higher low that we got. The blue line below that is from the low at 49,000. So those are the support levels. And again, if we go down towards the 200, then the VWAP support from that low, the 49,000 low, then comes into play. We have resistance, VWAP resistance overhead now, and that's where we turned off of with this rally right here. We had a failed breakout of a bullish falling wedge. We came down. We ended up blowing through the support zone, so that pattern completely failed, and we had a possible bull flag also talked about. So again, if we can bounce here or end up going lower and bounce here in the low 80,000 range, 82,000 or so, if we bounce here, again, we have this resistance area and these VWAP resistance levels from the low here, from the high over here, and then from the high over here. So that is the VWAP resistance. So from the lower high there. If Bitcoin is to bottom at this VWAP right here or down here, and that would be closer to our 200 period moving average in the daily time frame, then we'd have to be able to come back up here and clear this 90 95,000 to 99 or 98,000, yeah, 99,000 area. And if you can clear that, you're getting back above 100,000. Then you got to be able to clear this resistance right here and our peak over here at 109,000. So again, we'll be watching to see how that unfolds, but just want to show you the support and resistance levels, the VWAP resistance, the VWAP support. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the information, you like the charts, let me know that by supporting the channel. Follow the link below to take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want or make it a recurring donation. I thank you for your consideration for that. Watch the video all the way through. I'm going to be talking about the seasonality. I'm going to be talking about the L8 wave count. Going to be talking about really important things. Watch the video all the way through. Try to make it shorter. Been trying to do that lately, but too much stuff to cover. If you want to see what's really going on, watch the video all the way through. Now, we had the support zone. Bitcoin took it out and took out the January low. So that opens the door now for possible bigger sell-off to the 200 period moving average. Did get a bottoming tail here. Got to get back up in the trading range and see things turn back to bullish if we're going to try to establish an immediate bottom. Still can form a bullish divergence on the 4-hour chart and hit the 200 period. I'll show you that in this video. I was right about the sell-off, right about the top, but wrong about the January low holding up. We've now taken out that January low. We rebounded off of the lows of the session. We were down about 6%, and we only closed down 3.25%. But we're still below the support zone. I'll be talking about the Elliott wave count, and again, that other scenario for that minor wave 4 is not done. But we took out the trend line right here. We took out the trend line right here, and I'll show you another trend line I'm watching now near the 200 period moving average. We may not reach it, but we've got to be able to get back into the trading range if that is going to establish a low right here, and I'll show you what I'm looking for. Because of the breach of support, we now may hit the 200 period. I still think we're going higher. I still think that Bitcoin will go back above 100,000. I still believe Bitcoin will go back above the 109,000 high, but I just believe we're getting a larger correction. Watch the video all the way through. Important things to be looking at. Now, I still believe we're in minor wave 4. I talked about minor wave 4 possibly being over here at the January low. That was invalidated. Now the possibility is that we're carving it out here. Now I've drawn the trend line right here from the 49,000 low and the higher low at 52,000. If you exclude the shadow, again, that's coming in near that 200 period. This is the log scaling right here. We have two possibilities for the L8 wave count. One is that wave 3 didn't finish over here, but it finished here, and that we now have this ABC structure, and we're going down to that 200 period or just above it maybe. Like I said, we still may form that divergence on the 4-hour chart. If you watch the video all the way through, you'll see that chart. And then we go and we bottom out, and we get this massive rally to complete the blow off top. Again, I think you've got intermediate wave 4 completing here. I think you've got these 5 waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5 once we bottom right here, completing minor wave 4. Now, again, I think you got a shot at a bottom this week. As I said, told you I thought support could hold, but if it broke, then I thought we'd get the minor wave 4 over here. Now, the other possibility is rather than 3 being here, again, going back to the original spot here, that you have this larger ABC where it's a 3-leg push, a 3-leg push, and then we get this 5-leg push lower that might be coming to a conclusion here, or might be more like this where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and we hit that level, and then we go on our way. So again, which is very possible if we go a little bit lower and hit that 200 period in the trend line, that's a confluence of support, and then you get your divergence on your 4-hour chart. So those are the scenarios that I'm looking at. But then I still think you get this, and I think that will take us to the upper boundary. And I'm just drawing a parallel boundary from these highs over here with these lows over here. And again, that's where we could go, and that could take us very close to the channel line in the weekly time frame. So that's the L8 wave count. You see it a little bit clearer here, up close and personal. If we didn't complete minor wave 4 over here, then again, it's likely over here. And again, like I said, the peak over here, it could be part of this whole structure for 3, and then you get this truncated fifth where they're almost equal peaks, and then you turn down and get the ABC over here. So again, it could be a larger ABC, but the second wave over here is smaller. So again, likely the 3 over here, the 4 over here. But there's both ways you can count it. Again, we're violating this level. If we get back above it, we may not hit the 200, but the risk is we come down to the 200, and then we come and get that 5th minor wave, complete the blow off top. So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. I told you I was looking for a bottom here. I still am, but we did violate the January low. I thought that would hold. I was right about the sell-off. I was wrong about the January low holding, but I still think you're going to carve out a bottom here. And I told you that if I was wrong about the January low holding, I told you it was this scenario that minor wave 4 would complete somewhere over here below horizontal support if we took out the January low, which we've now done. So we'll be watching to see how this unfolds. Now, here is the weekly chart. And again, on the 2022 low, again, I believe we have 5 legs higher in a 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think we're in intermediate wave 5. That's unfolding in 5 minor waves. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, got it wrong there. The 3 over to here now. We've changed it. 3 and then 4 and then now 5. Minor wave 5. Minor wave 4 complete. So going to be watching if we find a bottom here or a little bit lower at the 200 period moving average in the trend line, going back here to the July low over here from 2024, and again that 49,000 area. Again, I still believe my target is this trend line. Whenever we come into contact with it, that could take us up towards 135, 140,000. We've gone nowhere. We have gone absolutely nowhere since November. Nowhere real fast. Look at that. Just going sideways. That means because we didn't reach the upper channel line immediately, Bitcoin could go even higher to reach it. But again, we have to complete minor wave 4 in order to do that and go higher. My count was just invalidated, taking out the January low. So now I'm going to be looking for a bottom at these levels or a little bit lower near the 200 period moving average. But I think Bitcoin has got a good shot at bottoming this week, but we did break the January support level. I was looking for that to hold. Even though it didn't, I told you what would happen if I was wrong about the January low holding. But regardless, looking for minor wave 4 to complete and then minor wave 5, and I think that will complete the whole 5-leg push higher of intermediate waves, which will complete the primary wave 5, which is the whole thing, the whole enchilada right there is primary wave 5. Yes, I still think Bitcoin, I believe Bitcoin is still going higher. My trend line is still the target. Consolidation is taking longer, making the target go higher, and now validating my previous count where minor wave 4 was over here at the January low. Now we have it over here wherever we bottom out. And I think, again, March is going to be good. Our seasonality in March is and going into early April is excellent. I think you're going to see this bottom. We have the volatility going on in January and February. Let's look at the seasonality real fast. This is a tight squeeze, but again, well worth watching. Tight squeeze, things overlapping a little bit here with the wording, but look at the previous 4 years of January to March. You get volatility in January or February, or sometimes both, and then you get this March rally into a March high or an April high. Bitcoin's done. Now, again, it doesn't have to do the same thing. There are periods in history where it didn't, but the seasonality for the last 4 years has been this way, and the April to September sell-off has taken place. I think we're going to rally into April in all likelihood when the tariffs kick in, and maybe mid-April or late April or something, or President Trump's going to get the reports on the tariffs and talking about implementing them on different countries, whether they all start at the same time or not, or maybe he gives a date when they begin. Have that information on April 1st, so maybe we see the rally continue but we're going to get the inflation data on the April 10th. The CPI inflation data, we'll be watching that. By the way, this weekend, this Friday, we'll get the PCE inflation data. Previously, the CPI and the PPI came in hot. We'll be watching that. And the NVIDIA earnings and how that impacts the stock market. But look at, here we had some volatility. Initially, we rallied in January, had some volatility, and then we rallied and we had more volatility after the rally in February. You had volatility in January, you had volatility in February, and then you rallied into March, a little bit more volatility, and you peaked there in April. That was 4 years ago. Then we had here where we had volatility, but then we ended up having a rally towards the end in March. That was a counter trend in the larger decline, 78% drop here. You had a rally in January, volatility in February, and another rally in March to an April high. Do you see what I'm saying? And we're getting the volatility in January, February, and then you get the rally on into March, possibly on into April. Here we had volatility in January, and then we rallied up a little bit more volatility in February, and then we rallied up to a March high, and then we got a lower high there in April, a couple of lower highs, and we had our 33% sell-off. See something like that again? Do we see volatility here in January, volatility here in February, but then we get this March rally that takes us higher on into maybe April? And look at the April-September. April to September here, we peaked in April, we sold off. We ended up rebounding later, but after the summer sell-off there, but April downward had volatility, and even the rebound back up, you still have more volatility into late September. Here from April to September, well, look at that. The bottom fell out of Bitcoin. Look at that. April to September, look at this. Sell-off, sell-off, the sideways move here. Look at over here. You had a peak in late March, and you had the 33% drop from April to September, where you bottomed out, got the higher low in September, and that was at 52,000. And again, then we had the breakout of the bull flag. But again, the seasonality over the last 4 years has been you rally into March or April, and then you start selling off going into the summer or on into the early fall. That's the way it's been. Have to be that way, but I'm just telling you, I think you got a good chance that we're going to see with all this volatility in January, February. I think the blueprint here, I think the roadmap is you're going to rally and have a great March and on into April, and then I think you're going to see the volatility. I think you'll see Bitcoin have a good shot at forming a top. Unless Trump postpones the tariffs. They have negotiations. Maybe there's further delays. It's certainly possible. We saw that with Canada and Mexico already, the pause. What happens? Again, you've got all these reciprocal tariffs coming on board. The United States is trying to match tariffs in the other countries. Other things are involved too, like the VAT and other things. I'm just telling you, again, we've got volatility. Could we see a March to April rally, keeping with the seasonality, and then April, maybe mid-April, maybe beginning or the latter part of April, sometime in April, maybe we see a peak in Bitcoin. Certainly possible. I think we're going to go reach that level. Do we go parabolic once this pullback is done? I think you got minor wave 4. Still believe Bitcoin's going to go make new highs. The pullback I'm looking for. We did go lower than I thought, but we got the pullback I'm looking for on the January 20th top, as I told you. Now I'm looking for a bottom to give us that next rally. I think the seasonality here is extremely important. Now, Bitcoin's at a make it or break it moment here. Now, again, the trend is still bullish here for Bitcoin, but momentum is bearish over the last couple of weeks here in the weekly time frame, and we've come right back down here with momentum to the center line. If Bitcoin bottoms out, again, we can firm up here and again likely go up and end up forming a divergence towards the upper channel line. Very similar to what we did here. We firmed up at the center line here, and that marked a Bitcoin bottom. And you'll notice again that from the bottom over here, we were consistently in positive territory up until we had this 33% sell-off that formed the bull flag, and eventually the signals, the bullish signals, turned back to bullish here in the weekly time frame, and that was validated going into positive territory right there. So again, we're at a moment where, is Bitcoin going to break into negative territory here and get all kinds of sell signals and get a complete reversal in the weekly time frame, or are we going to firm up here and resume the advance and mark this as a pullback? So we'll be watching to see how this unfolds. I warned you back up at the top in January, at the January 20 top, which was inauguration day. We had a reversal there that we were going to sell off. We did. Saw the momentum, first momentum signals turn bearish, and then we saw the trending signals in the daily time frame turn bearish, and that remains. We had a couple of attempts to try to turn things around, and they failed. But look what's happening here with momentum. Momentum is trying to form a bullish divergence right now. Again, taking out support, the January low, the February low, we've taken these levels out. Is that just a complete minor wave 4, which I'll be talking about in this video, but just want to make you aware of these things. Everybody's now turning bearish. Back when I was calling the top over here, and back when I was calling the top, the day of the top here and the day of the top here, they weren't bearish. Now, I told you I thought the January low would hold. I was correct on the pullback, but we took out the January low. We're seeing the same type of bearishness that we had back over here at the January low, and back over here at the early February low there. Herd tends to get very, very bullish at tops and very, very bearish at bottoms. And again, we've gone lower than I thought we would go, but signals continue to remain bearish, looking for a bottom in this area. The thing is, we've got to be able to get back above the 100 period moving average to mark this as a correction. But a divergence here, wanted to share that with you, a bullish divergence developing here. Then here again, I warned you about the peak over here on January 20th that we had that reversal bar, and we had it validated with momentum starting to shift and the momentum line right after that. And again, we tried to see it turn bullish a couple of times here, but it failed each time with the failed breakout of the bullish falling wedge. And now we see this push lower, breaking the support zone. So again, the risk is that we come back to the 200 period. Balance of power remains in the negative region. That has to turn back to positive. The risk is that we end up coming back down to the 200 period moving average. But signals remain bearish, momentum remains bearish, trend signals remain bearish here, and taking out horizontal support. Again, the risk is we keep going to the 200 or lower. It's just a head fake breaking support, and then we get back into the trading range. Then you can bottom and, again, complete minor wave 4. But the risk is that we complete it at lower levels right here. And I'll show you the Elliott wave count in this video. We sold off yesterday. Again, Trump rattled the market with his tariffs. Bitcoin kept selling off. And then again, the stock market opened. Bitcoin dropped sharply, dropping about 6% at the session lows. When we formed the bullish diversions on these intraday charts, again, it still may be that we try to take this level out. I'll show you the 200 period in a moment. But we formed bullish divergences, and that gave us this rebound. Bitcoin was down, I think at the lows, right around 6% or just close to it. We ended down 3.25%. So we recovered off of those lows. Again, we'll be watching to see what happens. You do have a little possible miniature inverse head and shoulders that could be forming here on the intraday charts here, the 15-minute chart, if this low can hold. And again, you'll have to look at the 200 and decide for yourself if you think it will or not. At these bullish divergences on the intraday charts, the 15-minute chart, maybe it's not done yet. Maybe there's another reference point, but we'll be looking to see, can we rally back up and then get back above the 200 here. Look at the 30-minute chart. Same thing here. You have the bullish diversions. Shrink that down so you can see it. We had the bullish diversions form today on the 30-minute chart, on the 15-minute chart. And again, we'll be looking to see, can we now carve out a bottom here, or do we go back down and take out that low? I posted these charts on X, formerly known as Twitter, today. I showed these intraday charts. And again, I've been tracking this one very closely here. We had the rising wedge. Let me just zoom out a little bit. here's the rally that we had. Again, we had the breakout of a bullish falling wedge, but it formed this bearish rising wedge. I talked about that at the time. We ended up breaking down from that and then dropped below the 50, the green line, dropped below the 200, got rejection initially at the 200, then the 50, crossed the 200, got rejection at the 50 over and over again. And here, now we formed this bullish divergence. But look at this. We got a 50-50 sell signal here where we dropped into the negative region below 50. We remained there. Now we're forming this bullish divergence, but we dropped below the 50 and held below it. Now we've got the 50 below the 200 here on the 60-minute chart for Bitcoin. So going to be watching this divergence. We've rallied up. We got a little tiny topping tail right here. We're pulling back with the Wednesday session now. So again, is there more work to be done? Do we still get a divergence on the MACD here? And again, look at the MACD. We dropped below the 50. We saw the RSI go negative. We saw the MACD go negative, and it remains that way. I talked about a bullish divergence possibly developing, hold above that support zone, and we ended up breaking below it, and we saw the MACD move below this low right here, and it remains in the negative region. So again, is this divergence going to try to mark a bottom with the bottoming tails we have here? Or again, do we get another push down for another shakeout move before trying to go higher? We very well could. Right now, we're down about 0.5% or so with Bitcoin as we start the Wednesday session, and we just started it. We're currently in the first hour of the Wednesday session right now as I'm making the video. So again, we got a divergence here. It's giving us bounce. It might be we form a multiple point divergence before we get the bottom. So we'll be watching. And if we do drop further, you got that 200 period moving average directly below in the daily time frame. Now, it's giving us a little bit of a bottoming tail here on a couple of bars here for the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. And again, look at the support zone. I talked about coming down here. Look at the circles I talked about. They're back testing here and getting a higher low above this level or taking it out. And I talked about this trend line right here. Talked about the support zone. And again, here's our bullish falling wedge. We broke out and it tried to back test. It failed on the back test. And then we broke this trend line. We broke the other rising trend line. And we broke this trend line right here from the previous bull flag and the lower boundary here of the bullish falling wedge. We broke through those levels and we came down here. So again, in the support zone, taking out that January low. We also saw the RSI now move to a new low. So it could be that we just see the RSI move to an extreme and you get a bottom, or it might be you get a rally and you get a divergence that develops much like what we had over here at the January bottom, that bullish divergence or the bearish divergence back over here at the December top. We also had one over here at the January top on Inauguration Day. And again, we talked about all those divergences, and I used those divergences to call the turns when we hit the trend lines of resistance and support, and then we hit the trend line of resistance again right there at 109,000. So again, we'll be watching now what happens here. Now that we've taken this level out, do we get back into the trading range here? We're trying to climb into it here, the tail end of the Monday session. Do we get back up in there on Tuesday, or do we get another push down before that happens? So again, do we just get an extreme, or do we get a bullish divergence here? I'll be watching that, but I did want to show you those other bullish divergences that gave us the bounce, because we were down 6% or almost 6% at the lows of the session, and then we clawed our way back up, and we only ended down that 3.25%. So we'll be watching to see what happens here. And I told you if we did take out the January low, and I told you I didn't think we did. I thought the support zone was going to hold, but I told you if we did do it, I told you what I thought would happen. I thought it would be an ABC move 4, minor wave 4. That minor wave 4 didn't finish over here, that it actually finished. It's going to finish over here, and then we're going to go higher. Those are the intraday charts. Here's a trend line that we broke, and I told you there was a confluence of support here. We had the horizontal support, we had the trend lines, we had this rising trend line, but we broke this level, okay? And we broke it, and now the risk is that we come back to the 200 period. Look at the trend line right here. This is from the higher low at 52,000. Here is the higher low at our 100 period moving average, and again, we just broke that trend line. I told you we could go back to it and bounce, S&P is trying to do that on its 2023 trend line, but Bitcoin broke this trend line, so the risk is we come down to this trend line. We don't have to come down to the trend line. This is our log scaling right here, but this is from the 49,000 low, excluding the shadow right here, and again, pointing up to that 200 period moving average. Should we see the sell-off continue? Should we see the RSI go deeper into the extreme readings here? We're already below 30, but we could still go lower. So again, I'll be watching this area. Do we bounce and then come back and hit it, or do we just hit it immediately? But I think you got a good shot that we could bottom this week. Whether we have it with today's low or go a little bit lower, we'll see. But I think you could carve out a bottom this week. Again, what if we get more bad news on the tariffs, again, that they're going to come into play and we end up going down, but then the same thing that happened before, where again there's more concessions out of Canada, more concessions out of Mexico, and Trump pauses them for another month. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Even if we do go lower at the 200 period here, which is right around the 82,000 area, then again, possible we see a bottom there. Could form a divergence before all is said and done. That would be something much uglier. Have to form a divergence, but you could. We don't even have to move lower, at the low over here. And I could show you other times in history where we bottomed out without a divergence. And here we didn't even quite reach the extremes. Over here, we didn't quite reach the extremes on this pullback right here. So again, we'll be watching to see how it goes. But again, wanted to make you aware of these trend lines because we did break this one that I've been talking about. And you have the one right here, excluding the shadow right there, coming in near 200 period. This is our log scaling. Again, did use the divergences to call the peak for December. That was correct. Use the divergence here to call the peak here with inauguration date. That was correct. Predicted the pullback, but we took out support now. So again, the risk is that we remain below the 100 period moving average and can't get back above it. The pink line is the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. Sometimes you drop below it. Over here, there's a lot of chop and slop, and maybe we're getting that. In order for the advance to resume, you'd have to get above the 100 period moving average and then be able to stay above it. And there's no bullish diversions on the MACD. We're still in negative territory, but the negative diversions are here at the December top, and the larger negative diversions have formed when we went up to a new high at 109,000. Again, that did play out, and the sell-off I was looking for has played out. We've just gone lower than I thought we would go. Again, I told you I thought that January would hold. Let me show you the Elliott wave count on all of this and what I think is going on right here. Before I show you the Elliott wave count, just want to talk about IBIT real fast. We have this gap that I'm going to be watching on IBIT now. Is it going to be filled? I thought the January low was likely going to hold right here. We ended up gapping down, went lower, and then rebounded back up to gap resistance here just underneath it. If we could start moving to fill the gap, I'll be watching the gap fill area. And again, that would take us back to the 5350 area here, which was this gap. We came and we filled it, and then we took out this low. So I'll be watching this gap fill right here on, I'm going to remove the previous gap from over here at 5350, and I'll mark this one at 5341. That's a gap, and I'll still be watching this trend line on IBIT. To get these gaps up and down all the time because of Bitcoin and its dramatic moves up and down. So I'll be watching to see, do we move back to fill that gap? And if we do, we'll move back into the trading range and we'll be watching Bitcoin. To be paying attention to on IBIT, the Bitcoin ETF at 5341, and then also the declining trend line here. Come in just above that if we reach it immediately, or near that if we take our time reaching it. So we'll be watching that. And again, if we go lower, if we do go lower and take this area out, then you have that 200 period in the daily time frame on the Bitcoin chart. We are at extremes. Do we get a rebound? And then if we do we end up forming a divergence? I was talking about right here possibly getting a reference point of a divergence above the January high. That did not play out. I was wrong about that. About the sell-off, wrong about support holding at the January low. We gap below it. We'll see if we move back now to fill that gap. We'll be watching closely. Again, here you could end up forming a divergence before all is said and done. You don't have to. You may not. But oftentimes you do. So we'll be watching the IBIT chart closely. The IBIT 60-minute chart looks very similar to the Bitcoin 4-hour chart. And again, you can see the RSI looks very, very similar. That's why I said, do we end up getting some kind of rebound, but then does a divergence end up developing here? It doesn't have to, but it very well could.